Recently, next year it will be 75 years since Nobel Prize winning economist started life as an Austrian, became British, and finished as an American. Friedrich von Hayek wrote the really troublemaking book, The Road to Serfdom. And the attack on collectivism. And for me, it is a major contribution that we should be reflecting on as we look at what for me is obtuse collectivism, that we are acting in the interest of all, which is why I talked about the tragedy of the commons and the lottery effect as the main sub-themes of my conversation here. What has happened to us as a country is when somebody is distant from the consequence and is making a choice, we often act in the manner of that which belongs to all belongs to none. And if you think of it, Garrett Hardin, the biologist years ago, actually wrote the remarkable article, The Tragedy of the Commons, that improved our understanding of these things. Here's what I was talking about, game theory. Look, if this common field belongs to all of us to come and graze our cattle, every day we'll take our cattle there, and the cattle will eat until it is well fed. But one day the field will become Sahara because nobody is regrassing the field, and the cattle will begin to die. But if that field belonged to an individual, he will make sure that he replants the grass there because he will need his cattle to come back the next day. And one of the problems of a federal arrangement of a nature where people have all the power concentrated in one place and making choices without the responsibility for the consequence is that it's the tragedy of the commons writ large. And this is why it is important to begin to look more and more at the subsidiary effect, getting government off our backs, and therefore not traveling this path of a projected collectivism that is not really a collectivist arrangement but an opportunity for people to take advantage to, in their own interest, advance their own interest in the name of advancing the interest of all. I think that the point I will make, and I'll begin to move quickly to a summation of my points of view, is that we have had challenges. And don't mind my books because I brought a couple of books to make a few points. We have had challenges that constantly move us towards the question of leadership responsibility in how our country evolves. The challenge for me is that a number of things converged in a way that has affected us. The coming together of soldiers and oil in centralizing things in our country, and the fact that we did not manage to get from the leadership elite that emerged during that period, has essentially left us in a direction in which a clear vision of where our country is going, a sense of one that cares for all, making everybody commit to the national thrust, has brought us to where we are, where people are just pulling, and in our not understanding what the issues are, instead of using what leaders do to advance that cause, we use what is easiest in availability to us, force. Force, for me, is as much a demonstration of weakness as it is a thought about strength. I equate those who, at one far end of the spectrum, are using hate speech and all kinds of things to antagonize others as a way of expressing their frustration, with the same as people who see solution to everything in force. The challenge of Nigeria today must be a challenge of a generation that understands that the essence is the advance of the common good of all, and that clear thinking leadership can provide us an opportunity for transforming and getting a collective commitment to achieving those goals. And I want to use as closing examples of what a proper federal structure does to excite people to commit to making things go. A few anecdotal references. I've been heard say this several times. You know, back in the 60s and early 70s, there was a lot of work about ethnicity and problems in Africa. Two academics out of Michigan State University at the time, Robert Melton and Howard Wolpe, tried to defend the African, tried to defend the Nigerian, that this is not just crude ethnicity, that what is happening is that there are ethnic nationality groups that are trying to outcompete the other. And they call this competitive communalism. And I've had a few favorite illustrations for this phenomenon in the attempt to show an understanding for the principle of subsidiarity. One of those is television and how it came to our shores. I'm sure many have heard me before refer back to the fact that when the federal government, with the Nigerian Broadcasting Service, denied the premier of Western Region the opportunity to make his point, he quickly decided to go into broadcasting. He was not barred from doing that because the regions could not, did not have the powers. He could establish a broadcast station. But instead of going into radio, which was the dominant medium, he chose to jump to the next level. A television station was founded. And so in Ibadan in 1959, the first television station in Africa came to be. Television in Ibadan before there was in Brussels, before there was in Dublin. And what did that do? Eastern Nigeria was going to be in a rush. I went to school in Ibadan. I went to Loyola College in the 60s, and I remember that payoff line. WNTV first in Africa. And as soon as Eastern Region started its own, which was not too far apart, theirs was what? Second to none. What does Western Region do when it realized that colonial government did not industrialize the country? Well, set up an industrial estate in the part of Western Region that we call Ikeja today. If you drive down Obakran today, you will see that Odua Investments has significant interest in many of those factories there, whether it's Nigerite or whatever. It came because of the process of how that got started. And what did the Premier of Eastern Region do? He would not be outdone by Western Region, so he simultaneously starts Aba and Trans-Amadi in Port Harcourt. And the governor, Premier of Northern Region starts the Kakuri Industrial Estate, which was blooming until Bishop Kuka's church there created problems. So, the point is, you move to education. Western Nigeria moves quickly with free education, doing great, envy of all, and many of us here would not have had the opportunity to have in life if that was not in place. Zeke goes east and wants to replicate the same thing. Doesn't have enough resources to do it. And insists he will not be outdone by Western Region. So the permanent secretary, newly appointed permanent secretary, Ministry of Finance in Enugu, Chief Jerome Udoji, says, look, this can't work. We don't have the resources. We don't earn as much as Western Region earns from cocoa, from palm produce. Okay, maybe we should have school fees for primary 1 and primary 5. And Zeke goes to Parliament and says that Udoji is trying to sabotage his government. Udoji takes umbrage, decides to leave, goes off on leave to London, preparatory, accepted a job from John Holt, literally speaking, and people came to beg him not to do it. But what? Eastern Nigeria works out a formula peculiar to Eastern Nigeria. They get the missions, the communities, and the government to work collaboratively on a program that came to be known as Ibuanye Danda. Those who understand Igbo will know the ants. Bunu Bunu, Ibuanye Danda. And Eastern Nigeria was to be able to leapfrog in education and get, where it wanted to go. The point is that each region has its peculiarity and can grow very quickly. That a federation can come from this kind of competition that is playing out. But where we have systems and processes, where political parties play their part, and that's my biggest challenge, political parties are not the instruments of mobilizing and forming people for this kind of role play, we get into the kind of challenges that we get into today. So what we must, in my view, offer our countries an understanding that restructuring is part of a continuous conversation in a federal arrangement. It is not something to abuse people about or kill people about. It is something to engage in. And if we have the appropriate platforms, organized by political parties, organized by civil society, we can keep adapting and adjusting to the challenges of change. Remember, as Machiavelli said many, many years ago, there will be people who resist such change. And one of my favorite quotes from Machiavelli, nothing is more difficult to bring about than a new order of things. Because those who profit from the old order will do everything to prevent a new order from coming about. And it's not finished. Those who will profit from the new order do not do enough to make it happen. Because man is incredulous in his nature, not wanting to try new things until he has witnessed experience of it. Let us be ready for change. What matters is being ready for change and making everybody come together through good leadership to go to where the promise of our country is. Nigeria will rise up again.